Hey guys, it's Anon again, and I just wanted to put together a few battles for you today. I had a really great run yesterday evening on our Twitch stream, and most of them were platooned with D. Dombeck of Storm, but the first one was me solo before he got on. So I had quite a few good games, so just thought we'd do a little gameplay of them. In the STB to start out, which is my newest tier 10 and finishes off owning all the tier 10s, and I'm really enjoying it so far. The gun's a little suspect to me. It seems to miss quite a bit. But the handling of the tank itself, it's a blast to drive, and the gun depression, and the turret really is pretty strong. I don't find myself getting penned through the turret very often, so I'm definitely enjoying it. Coming up to mill to start, which is I think the great difference between this and the Leo. The Leo I would never take up here just because it's far too weak, but with the stronger turret it lets me at least come up and start the battle and kind of see where it goes and adjust from there. So I can come up and see if we can't get a few cheap shots right off the bat and spot the team as they come up, which the IS-8 lets me do right off the bat. So I can keep kind of shooting up as I wait for my team to come up the rest of the way. And I'm also counting red dots as they come up so I can see if we're going to get the whole team up here, if we're going to have to start worrying about flankers. We've got 4 right off the bat, so I assume we're probably going to see somebody else trying to flank behind. I'm going to switch to the other side because they're so hull down, and I'm still not that strong, so this gives me a kind of a different vantage point to start to see where they're coming from. Still no shots here. I see my teammate ping the 268, which I was curious where he is anyway, so looking at the map I can see he's trying to run around behind, which means that we're going to be able to take him out real quick, which is great. We obviously don't want him flanking. That wouldn't be a great situation for pretty much any of us, so, and since I can't really shoot down the hill right now anyway, this lets us kind of take him out real quick. I was kind of figured between the two of us we'd be able to take out the 268 before he killed our 68, but I'm sure he was getting sniped down as well. You can see the IS-4 in the background trying to get a few shots, but now I can tell that that the red team's all pretty much up here and the IS-4 is sitting behind trying to snipe up, so I'm going to run around behind. It's a stalemate right there anyway, unless one team's just walking into shells, so I can kind of scoot through town here without being spotted. The IS-4 runs down, which means I do get spotted, but I'm almost to cover anyway, so I'm not overly concerned. Now their IS-4 is floating in space, so he presents a lot less challenge, so I can get a few shots on this E-100 and try and get take out a big gun. I'm intentionally shooting at that back corner of his turret, hoping to keep damaging the ammo rack or maybe get a lucky rack, but that obviously isn't happening. Heals that and starts to turn towards me. Actually gets a good HE shot on my turret. Not a ton of damage, but yeah. It's still starting to back me up a little bit. And now charging. I'm not sure what our team is doing now. They're kind of diving all over the place. So I'm going to stay focused on this side and try and keep this big gun out of the battle. Especially because I'm also seeing red starting to drop down to town, which means that as long as we keep this high ground, we should be able to get him. Alright, knew had him on reload there, so not a problem. And like I said, now all the red team is down in this low ground in town, which should make them much easier to pick off. Just kind of going from lowest damage to highest damage until the IS-8. It would make me quite a bit more exposed to point out to get the other two, so let's get rid of this easy target first. As he turns his turret all the way around. Down to 2 tanks. I'm kind of peeking to see which way the Jag is looking. He's looking up, so he's not a big threat, but I didn't have great shot, so I figured I'll just charge in and get this Patton. Probably should have played it a little bit slower because I can see the Jag starting to turn around, but it's not a huge deal. I knew I can take a shot if I have to, which unfortunately I do, but now it's 3-on-1, and he's on flat ground, so it's not going to be too difficult to get our circle of death going, even if there isn't room to do it. And so there's a nice, pretty nice game in the STB. Luckily right now, there's just not a lot of them out there, so it doesn't take a whole lot to get the mastery. It's still a really good game, and certainly not upset with 5,000 damage and 4 kills, but that's probably the only tier 10 medium where you can do that right now. Alright, switching over to some of the platooning, and we're in T30s. Trying to go up and protect the hill, but of course our medium is running away really quickly, which isn't really necessary, but we had spammed hill at the beginning, but they had other things in mind, but they had a decent amount of mediums and we were worried they were going to come up and flank us. So instead of charging in, we set up kind of in the back of the hill, and because our whole idea is we want them to come in farther than we usually would, and we can use the great gun depression and hold down of the T30s. And they're doing exactly what we wanted them to do. We're working to get an angle on the Centurion. Unfortunately, I don't have quite enough gun depression in this spot, so I'm really still hoping they work in farther. Unfortunately, we have 2 teammates sitting on top of this hill that can be shot up, and it's not really a great position to be up that high, and so I'm not sure they may die because of that, but it's we don't want to give up this weak position or this strong position, because it's pretty clear that our team is not going to do super well. The guys that refuse to come up to hill are getting stomped in town pretty hard, even though they actually had a gun advantage in there. So we're not going to worry about it too much. We're just going to keep this position. Definitely fighting for the long game on this one. Yes, we could have turned around and run into town, but it just would have been a matter of committing suicide. So we'll keep this advantageous position. I'm keeping an eye on what's going on in town, just because we know when our team does finally die in the town, Red will have a chance to come up, and so that's why we start pushing here. R103 it kind of YOLO'd anyway, so it'd be nice to save him for a minute, but he just rushed in too hard. But we push up because we know town is about to be finished, and now we're looking at a 2 versus 5 situation. So getting rid of the last gun up here, so now we rule the hill and have that great high ground advantage with tanks with good gun depression. So we peek up, assuming they're going to come in and cap. So D comes up to my right and stays here, so I tell him to stay, and I'm going to pop back to this building closer to our spawn. There's bushes over there, and it gives us 2 angles to shoot down on, because if we're right next to each other, it's going to be much harder to hit different tanks. And this location also gives you shots into the cap circle, which, even though they're not right now, we just assume they're going to cap, because it's pretty much what every team does in this situation. The T-54 starts popping up to the left, and that's our biggest threat. So basically, and I'm terrible RNG there, because we know there's a full health T-54. It's either a full health or mostly health E-75. The KV-5 is fairly hurt and not a huge threat. And honestly, I don't remember what the other tier 8 is. So I'm hoping for an ammo rack here and trying to put it right above the, kind of right in those tracks, but not getting lucky. But he just keeps pointing at me and stepping out to take shots. So I'm going to stay focused on him. This is about the time D tells me that he's worried about cap, so is going to kind of make the sacrifice to go down and spot into it, since I have the better position to shoot. So you can see that's what he's doing there. It's a pretty good sacrificial position or move in this spot. He knows he's probably not going to make it, but it lets me start picking these guys off. This is where the 54 is a bigger threat, and unfortunately that's where he is, because it's going to keep me from being able to save D. But he is still the bigger threat, and now I know where everybody is. So unfortunately I can't keep peeking out and shooting in the circle right now to save him, because I keep taking shots on the side, and hit points are pretty important. The 54 clearly backed off, so it gives me a little bit of a little bit of reprieve to start working on him. That's why I load HE. I'm trying to finish off any of these tanks I can, hoping he peeks back out, because I know all three of them are down there together at this point. Alright, so D's gone, but I know that all three of the tanks left are one-shot, so it's actually not a terrible position to be in. I really should have taken the blind shot here, because I was pretty sure I knew where the E75 was, but I also thought I had the view range to spot him when he came around the corner. So I was a little frustrated with that. I see the 54 starting to move. Don't quite get a shot on him, but I know where he's going. Great shot by the KV5. But load the HE because he doesn't back out all the way. Can get rid of that. The E75 hits me, so they clearly have good angles on me at this point, and I know the T54 is going to come up through the center. So I turn to face him because I know I can work this ridge and try and use that gun depression to pick him off. So as I peek up just to see him, I'm exactly right. And I'm starting to worry about time here, so I'm thinking I might have to rush him because I know he can't kill me in one shot. But he gets a little jittery here and does me the favor of running in front of my gun. So, biggest threat gone. Now it's the E75. I know he was in the center. I kind of feel like he's starting to work up in the middle. So I'm hoping to get him before he comes up all the way. But really just moving slow because I want to get that spot first. I also know he's a one-shot, so the HG is great. I'm wrong that he didn't come up, but right in his position. Unfortunately from here, I don't quite have the gun depression to get him, so I start wiggling forward and backward. And you see what I'm doing? I'm getting that gun bounce, and actually use the gun bounce to drop down and be able to get that HE shot in him. So not a trick you use very often, but it worked great in that position. I really thought that was going to be a mastery with that much damage in the kills. I assume I just didn't spot enough, but still a pretty great game, and I'll take the Koblanovs any day. So definitely pretty happy with that one. Okay, moving on to the Tiger 1. I actually just recently bought this tank back for the sole reason that it looks awesome in camo. I just think it's a super cool looking tank now, and with the current 1-1 matchmaking, it makes it quite a bit improved. The armor is not fantastic on it, lots of weak spots. It does pretty well with angling because of the boxiness, but it still really had a hard time with 9s before. I'm going to start cutting up through the center here a little bit because we are actually bottom tier, and they have some pretty good tanks on the other side, so I don't want to rush up to caves. This tank just has way too many weak spots. And that works perfectly because I get the other Tiger doing what I didn't want to do and kind of streaming right up in here. It takes a couple snapshots, but pretty much lets our whole team work his side. I'm sure he's getting some spots in, which is not a bad thing, but that's just way too much damage to take. Can't finish him off, but I know that he is not going to be as dangerous. Start getting some bounce shots, and actually when I see it's the IS-3 means I was really pretty fortunate with that, considering he hit my turret. But I can turn and see that we've got lots of tanks already starting, up in the caves, and we've got a lot up there too, so I can pretty much take the time and get some easy snipe shots because there's not a whole lot in the background. I can see my platoon mate and 2 other tanks starting to engage to my left, but since they have a 1 tank advantage and our team's struggling up at the caves, I decided to focus on that. I realized that they're fighting that same IS-3, and he starts stepping out backwards so I can get some nice hole shots, so I'm going to take the time to go ahead and put a few in him, just because that's a pretty dangerous gun in this battle, and it'll help the platoon mate a little bit. They're starting to back out of the caves, which is good. Starting to shoot them in the side usually will make them nervous and back down a little bit. Get the Black Prince giving me beautiful side shots here. I'm getting a lot of bounces in here too, which is a little surprising. They're not taking the time to aim on me because I clearly have a lot of weak spots. Still working that armor at that close to 45-degree angle. This tank does become much stronger, but has plenty of weak spots if they take the time to work on it. get a great sneak shot to finish off that Panther too, because I knew he had our 34 on reload. So still kind of paying attention. I can't run out too much because there's just so many guns focused in here towards the center. But now that our 34 is working up through caves, I decided to go, and I'm really just hoping to push the 44 out or get the IS-3. We're really just trying to move him around there. I was hoping for a miracle shot there, but didn't need to happen. I'm trying to push him back down into our guns that were sitting to the left. And realize that they're pushing them pretty hard now too, so get a couple good shots on the Pershing. I'd love to kill him, but taking the easy shot, and actually the 44 eats my shell, which is probably pretty good for the team there for a second. Get that, and then full speed ram kill on the IS-3. Even while it was doing it, I wasn't sure it was a good idea because the IS-3 is so heavy, but it worked out great, and now it gets us down to one tank. For kind of the easy win here at this point. A little closer on the number of tanks, but there's a lot of health with good players left, because our T-34 is a very good player. It's really just races at this point for the T-44. And that's that. So, another fun game. And a nice little Tiger 1 mastery. Good damage. Love getting the kamikaze in that tank to take out the IS-3. Alright, so I'm going to move on to back-to-back games in the T-25-2. I recently bought this tank back actually just to, I needed a little bit of stat fixing on it, and I hadn't earned my mastery badge, which I'm trying to collect all of those. But since that, I've actually fallen in love with it. I'm sure I had no clue what I was doing when I drove it the first time, but this is a great, underrated little tank. It's very quick. Traverse speed is not too bad for a TD, fabulous gun depression, and an extremely strong turret. So with this current matchmaking that's going on, it can really handle a battlefield well. So obviously running up to the mill, and with a tank with good gun depression, I prefer to stay on this left side, because it will really allow for a hold down position. The one thing that you have to be careful of on this side of the map is what just happened to my left, is if you get a camping red team, they can snipe your left side, but you can use that hill to protect it once you realize that and stay aware. So they're getting some lucky snipes on me early, and I actually think that this is going to be a quick game for me because down to not very many hit points at all. But now I've gotten much more protected, and I can start to shoot back on the tanks that are sniping me, and usually only a couple shots on them will make them move back and think about what they're doing a little bit. D is in a Tankenstein, so it's taking him a long time to get up here. But once he is, that's going to give us a really big gun in the battle. It took Red a while to decide that they were going to work on me a little bit, but since not much was spotted to the left, I stayed in this position, and it works out because now I'm seeing everybody to the left. We finally got all these spots in. Starting to work on this Jumbo just because he's pressing so extremely hard, and take another shot here. So now I'm going to have to play really, really careful because I am a one-shot for pretty much anything left in the game. I've taken way too much damage early on, but I'm peeking to see where our team is, and now I know I have lots of help, so I should just play more conservative. I've got this T-29 very hold down. He ends up doing a good job. He's extremely hard to kill. My reticle keeps showing that I can get his soft spots, but I miss it quite a few times after this last shot now that he's down to low health. So I'm still working on him because he's such a big gun, but not getting it, and also waiting for the spots to happen. I can see now that we've got a TD coming up behind us, but I'm worried about the T-29 sneaking a shot in the side of my turret when I go to face him, which he just bounces one off my front, so that's a reasonable fear. D tells me that this SU is starting to shoot him in the back, So I don't really have a choice but to turn around because that Tangenstein's so slow. If he turns around to face him, then he'll be too weak, exposed down the hill. So I take responsibility, but I have to be extremely careful here because I'm in that one-shot range, and that SU has an incredibly powerful gun. So I'm shooting APCR at him just because of those angles. I think I could probably pen with AP, but because I actually at this point think I'm probably going to die. So I'm just doing as much damage as I can to help out my platoon mate and leave him in the best position possible. Luckily I can sneak that in. You can see how fast that gun aims. And the dispersion is low. It's just such an underrated tank. I'm surprised it doesn't get more accolades than it does. So back to the T-29 at this point. It's the platoon versus 3, but we know the T-29 is low. I actually hadn't seen the 43 in a while, so I didn't realize how much health he had. D gets a great shot in him because he's running that SU-100 gun on it, so great alpha to kind of do that damage, but he doesn't have much chance of penning this T-29 here either. I'm honestly trying to bait shots as much as anything, kind of peek on his health. Because I feel like I'm going to be able to sneak one in, but can't quite do it. This T-43 is making me nervous now, because if I poke out too far, he could get the side of my turret. Extremely surprised that doesn't go through, but I must have just hit his gun or his mantlet. He's just too dangerous to leave there. I'm switching to HE because I only need to sneak 12 hit points out, but this isn't a super high caliber gun. So you can see there I'm trying to even sneak it in on the T-29 at this point, but it's not going to do a whole lot of damage. Finally get the kill on the 43, which I actually was surprised that killed him. So now I'm going to go for Coppola shots because he's clearly so hull down. They're starting to cap. I'm just shooting for any weak spot. I know that's not actually the weak spot it says it is, but sometimes you just hope you get some luck. And then finally, using that accuracy, can take it out. Yes, I am clearly a noob for killing you in your turret. Alright, so now streaming down in, I tell D just to set up for the snipe because he's too slow. And so anytime I tell him something, we're on our Discord channel, so we're chatting through all these battles. But that's a lot of audio that's not as useful as me going back through the gameplay. So just working good shots here. I'm willing to die if I need to at this point because I know he's shooting down, but it's not necessary. So a really nice game of turning the tide. I honestly thought I was going to die right off the bat because I took away too many shots, but was able to stick it out and use that strong turret to allow the team to catch up. I still bounced, a great amount of shots off that turret to get the steel wall. Like I said, these were back-to-back games. We actually played 4 or 5, but had Masteries 2 in a row that worked out great. We are bottom tier this time, so we decide just to pop right on the other side of these rails. I'm originally thinking we're all just going to flank, because I have the speed pretty close to a medium, but our mediums clearly have something else in mind and aren't interested. I see the Pershing, and he's pushing really, really hard, so I actually charge to use these hills and my gun depression, figuring I can stop him, because clearly 2 of their mediums are pushing hard, and it'd be great to take out especially a top tier gun right off the bat. So I can work this ridge here, and I'm probably completely hull down, and kind of get his attention so we can start putting some shells in him, and our team that's come over onto this side is able to help too. The Panther is charging in trying to help his teammate, but was a little bit too late. So we can, like I said, take out another big gun. I can look at the map and see that the couple guys, especially our mediums that had decided to charge town, ill-advised, are dying off. Which isn't a surprise. I mean, go with the bulk of your team. Depending on what tanks we're in, even if the team isn't doing what I would prefer to do direction-wise, sometimes, especially if you're playing solo, you just have to suck it up and go with them because strength and guns. This Panther 2 is coming out. I'm not sure where he's trying to go, but can get a nice, easy shot. I load the APCR just because those Panther 2 or J Panther 2s get some troll bounces. And now, one of my favorite spots in the game, sitting right on the other side and shooting through the train tracks. So protected. It's one of the best peek-a-boom positions. If I'm low tier or in tier 10, I do this quite a bit. Tier 10 medium, that is. So getting some good shots on the Ferdinand and the other T25. His 59 pushes, but he's going to run into a wall of guns. So that is pretty fantastic. I can charge him only because I know he bounced back over. I've got the great turret, and I have the gun depression to shoot right down into his hull, and he's just bouncing off of it. Take a shot from behind, probably through the train tracks. Decide that's okay just because I'd rather get rid of this top tier medium, and now I can turn around. But our team's engaged them a little bit better now, so I don't have the fear. It was probably the T25. And they're all kind of in the center, so it lets me peek back over here again and get some really nice shots. They're too low to shoot through the train tracks. Ferdinand starts to turn. T25, they're all focused on me now at this point, which is great. Although I didn't notice that Ferdinand, so I had to bail out. He turned at me pretty hard, but now it lets the rest of the team go in behind him because he turned all the way around to face me. And the T25 comes back in. So great position for this. I take the shot from him. That was an intentional trade because I knew that was going to be kind of the deciding factor. So all in all, none of those masteries were incredibly massive, but they're all really nice games, all kind of showcasing the talents of different tanks. And so it was a really nice Twitch run. Thanks for watching.